Time's ticking, and we only have 12 hours left with 24 Legacy. I wish I could say that it was 24 hours, but the show only covered 12 episodes, therefore 12 hours. It's still 24 though. Hello, I'm Gibson Shamar from Hecate Media, and I welcome you to the 24 Legacy Talk. So we're going to talk about the characters first, then talk about the show itself. So let's get right into the action, just like the show does. The main character is Eric Carter. He is a gentleman who has the same hair color as mine, and is a retired ranger who worked on an assignment where they brought down a dangerous terrorist and has begun a new, peaceful life. He changed his identity and lives incognito with his wife, Nicole, whom he stole from his brother. Yikes. I had no idea you could do that. Eric is a guy who is trying to keep it together and is dedicated to his job. He has a heart and has drive, and is dedicated to his friends. Unlike Jack Bauer, he doesn't see himself as above the rules and does as much as he can to stay within the rules, although he breaks them only a little bit, but not often. Then we have his wife, Nicole. She's a dedicated wife to Eric, loyal and such a good role model to other ladies on how to be a wife. She also has the same hair color as me. She has a lot of history with Eric and his brother Isaac that we needed to explore more of. She also reads her husband very well. She works as a nurse, so I'm guessing she would know how to read people to some degree. We have Isaac Carter, Eric's brother. He is a gangster and lives the hood life. He is in love with Nicole, but respects her choice of having left him for his brother, and having left the hood life to live the good life on the other side of the law. It's very weird to see that he is still a criminal and does a lot of illicit and illegal stuff, and his brother is essentially a cop. I wonder if that is ever gonna be addressed. He is in a relationship with Aisha, a very beautiful girl who seems to know of the history between him and Nicole, and gets instantly jealous upon seeing her. I mean, Aisha, I don't mean to be mean. I just want to be forward. Your beauty is praiseworthy. You're the epitome of beauty. You are the reason the sun comes out in the morning. It wants to shine its light on you and showcase to the world what wonders the human race can produce. Oh, okay, I'll stop. It was getting too corny. Despite being a bit bitter about Eric, Isaac is still willing to get his hands dirty and go in all the way for him. It does take Nicole to convince him sometimes, but he is still motivated by love for his family. Then there's Rebecca Ingram. Oh, this is a good one. She's the former head of CTU and stepped down prior to the events of the show. She is married to presidential candidate John Donovan, played by Senator Organa, Jimmy Smits. She is also a bit lost in the world. Although she runs his administration very well and things are going splendidly for the both of them in terms of the campaign, she still very clearly misses all the action that used to go down in the CTU. She tries to avoid it, but she is just so good at it and loves it so much that when the opportunity presented itself, she couldn't hold herself back from doing it. John Donovan. He's a very interesting guy. Whenever I see a Star Wars actor from the prequel trilogy that isn't Natalie Portman or Samuel Jackson, I get really excited because it's like, snap, they got Star Wars people here. I mean it like that because Natalie Portman and Samuel Jackson have very large portfolios outside Star Wars in mainstream movies. I've only seen Hayden Christensen in Jumper and Takers. Nothing more than that. I saw Ewan McGregor in Birds of Prey and Angels and Demons. And The Island. And Stormbreaker. Other than that, nothing. And Angels and Demons isn't even a mainstream thing, at least not to me. Anyway, John is a guy who has his ideals in the right place but hasn't seen enough of the dark side of the world. The more the show went on, the more I was convinced that perhaps John isn't psychologically ready to take on the role of the president of the country. We as the audience have seen the kind of stuff presidents go through in the 24 universe, and it's not pretty. John was vastly underprepared for what was going on. It's not a bad thing, but He wouldn't even adapt to the situation, which is something I saw as a bad thing. Ben Grimes. Yeah, this guy has issues. He has some very serious issues. His PTSD and government conspiracy theories are what made everything escalate to the way it did. He had a very simple task in the second episode of the show, and he botched it because he wanted to make a quick buck. He served with Eric, but got the short end of the stick when it came to benefits. He felt like the country betrayed him and doesn't know what he had to give up to do what he had to do in service. He still messed up colossally, though. On the bad guy's side, Jadala bin Khalid. He's a university student and wants revenge on Rebecca Ingram for the death of his father. He also just wants to continue his father's work. Seriously, he found all the Rangers who went on the mission that killed his father and had them all executed along with their families. His last two targets were Ben and Eric, both of whom managed to escape. He is seen as a capable leader and a cunning strategist. Then there's Ibrahim bin Khalid. He is Jadala's father, who, as it turns out, survived the attack by the Rangers but was left deformed. He comes back and takes over the operation once Jadala is captured and wants to continue his work as well. He wanted to exact revenge on the people who targeted him as well. His goal aligned with his son. Henry Donovan, John's father. I class this guy as a bad guy because he made deals that led to the whole terrorist plot in the first place, and it was all in the name of getting his son into office. He's a very shrewd man and is capable of resisting torture in order to keep his secrets. That's actually an impressive feat. He's able to resist torture even knowing that he's guilty of the crimes he's being accused of, and has raised his son so well that his son won't allow it to happen, even considering the possibility that he is bad. He also works on framing one of John's people to make it look like they were the bad guys. It really is a sick thing this man did. Back at the CTU, we have Keith Mullins, the head who replaced Rebecca. He is good at his job, competent, and at first suspected of being a potential mole. Keith plays by the book but also understands when the rules have to be bent. He does not agree with that, but does so when it is needed. And if there is an alternative, law-abiding way of getting things done, he does not approve of underhanded methods. Then there's Andy, who is a computer analyst. He is a good analyst and often talks about where he got his degree. I don't remember if it was Harvard or Oxford. I just remember that it was a really fancy university. He also happens to like the same flavor of ice cream that he makes himself. That taste drives a lot of what happens to him later on in the show. He is a loyal guy but cracks under pressure easily. He is definitely not built for field action. And lastly, we have Thomas. He's also a guy who likes the same flavor ice cream that he himself makes. He is a very imposing man, very large, and has a huge presence about him. His investigations lead to him constantly making things difficult for Andy when he's doing shady or underhanded things with or for Eric. He is intense and no nonsense, but also very concerned for his friend when push comes to shove. So on to the show. The show uses the same real-life standard of 24 hours. I really like that about the show. I think that was the point and the main appeal of the 24 universe. Everything happens in real time. You get to see and feel just how intense things get when a terrorist attack is imminent because you feel every minute of it. The show brings you into the chaos of the threat and makes you, as an audience member, really think about the things you take for granted. The struggle gets really real in this thing, and the thing about this show is that it doesn't ease you into the world and its establishments. Right from the first episode, things are already intense and there's a huge action sequence in Eric's house. I remember when I watched the first episode of 24, there wasn't any action. There was tension, but no action. In fact, there was no action until probably more than halfway through the season. With Legacy, the action starts right from the first episode. The budget of the show was also very well placed. The special effects and the actors were all perfect for their roles, as per usual 24 standards. Seriously, Fox Studios took this show very seriously. This is just one of the most well-made shows I have ever seen. The problem with 24 Legacy comes with the way Fox Studios went around it. The mid 2000s and 2010s were not a good time for Fox, especially when it came to handling their massive IPs. The X Men movies and the Fantastic Four are examples of this. They also had a tendency of canceling shows, one of the things that pushed Netflix forward. Netflix came up with the whole release entire seasons at once model to avoid these cancellation things halfway through the season. Now they just cancel them after a full season is made. Looks like you need to take that line of thought back to formula. The other problem the show faced was the same that every other season of 24 faced. Because everything is happening in one day, you can't really have someone go through a complete arc. It's either they have already started down the road or they start in the season without it concluding. Things also develop way too quickly for it all to realistically happen in one day. They uncover an entire terrorist conspiracy in hours, and that's after the terrorists have started acting out their plans. That's really kind of unrealistic. There's also the fact that they get around town unrealistically quickly. It's almost like the cities don't have traffic at all, or that they would be devoid of traffic jams during terrorist attacks. That's where the 24-hour real-time thing kind of fails. In the end, it still is the most appealing thing about the show. I like how Nicole is a girl who can say that she dated two brothers. I really don't know how it would feel dating my brother's ex, whom I stole from him. That's just weird. What's weirder still is that Isaac tried to win her back at some point when she was showing doubts about her relationship with Eric due to what was going on at the moment. Real low, bro. That's a low blow. But then again, that's probably what Eric did to him to steal Nicole, so it's fair game. At least Nicole decided to stick around this time and not leave her guy. But then again, the sudden cancellation of the show is probably responsible for the sanitized drama. Remember when I was talking about how Fox was mishandling a lot of stuff, especially in the mid-2010s? Yeah, this show was one of those things. See, 24 is supposed to have 24 episodes per season, with one episode explaining the events of 1 hour. So Fox greenlit 24 Legacy for 12 episodes, with the expectation and promise of it going to 24 episodes. But then no, they cut it short and left it at 12 episodes. Ask them why, because they didn't give a proper reason. You might as well not call it 24 if it's just going to be 12 episodes. You can create a whole new show that's 12 episodes and deals with exterminating terrorist threats. Heck, you could even see that there was more planned, but they just rushed everything towards the end when the 12 episodes weren't greenlit. Top management was really on something at that time, you know? There was also the Aisha problem. I mean, I don't not find Nicole attractive, but come on. Come on, for crying out loud. No woman alive should make you feel insecure. You messed around and you found out, lady. You are in competition with no one because you are in a league of your own. There's a beauty ranking system and you are at the top ranking. Seriously, her rivalry with Nicole should have been explored more. John Donovan was also an interesting guy, different from all the previous politicians we've seen in the show. He was not ready for the dark side of being president of one of the most targeted countries in the world. I liked that about him. He was the most human out of everyone, even when it interfered with proper investigations. He got in the way of interrogating his dad when his dad was guilty of some dark behind-the-scenes stuff. Shame on you, John. Also, I like that you played a politician again. George Lucas saw something in you, didn't he? Every season of 24 has a mole in the agency, but this season did things differently. There was no mole. There was no traitor in their midst. Ironically, that caught me off guard. The whole time I was watching it and waiting to see who the mole would be. But nope, no mole this time. Crazy. It's crazy that the twist involving a mole is that there isn't one. Shoot, man. After finishing the show, I went to look for why it was cancelled, and the only answer I was given that's made some sort of sense was that the show didn't have a strong enough identity. I don't know. If you give a show half a season and it's basically a show that follows the same formula that worked for the previous establishment, you should probably give it more time to grow into its own thing. You can't make a show called 24 and make it completely different from what came before and expect people to like it. You bring in familiar elements and then start changing things with time in order for you to justify the existence of the show. But nope, there was no patience for that. It's a real shame too, because this show was actually amazing. It was nice, it was tense, and a tad bit more tragic than the previous 24. It was interesting to see gangbangers doing work for the CTU. That's what happens when you let in a guy with a different hair color and he takes over the show. You gotta love how Hollywood simplifies things for the casual audience to understand. Keep up the good job there. Isaac is also a complex character and reflects a lot of what the theme is in this show. The inability to let things go due to a feeling of responsibility. Rebecca Ingram feeling responsible for the events at CTU despite retiring. Eric feeling responsible for everything and wanting to take charge despite having retired. Isaac being responsible for his gang because he's the leader. They all have the same thing, coming from different backgrounds and having different motivations, but it's still the same kind of motivation. The main theme would be that responsibility or burdens of responsibility. Speaking of being responsible or being burdened, we have Andy and Thomas. Thomas feels responsible for Andy due to their perceived relationship, which is never explicitly stated, but you can clearly see where it was going. They had a history of some sort, and it was not or did not go well. I feel like this would have been expanded on if the show had more episodes. I also like how they did the whole siege operation and Eric fought hard only to survive the attack because of John, who was finally starting to see how much he had to dirty his hands. John got a shadow op boss to open up. And look at who we got making a few guest appearances. Tony Almeida. This guy has been through a lot in this show. I think if there's anyone who has lost just as much as, if not more than Jack Bauer, it's this guy. Tony's life is just... man. And the weird thing is, Jack goes down the same road, but somehow he gets the clean slate while Tony just loses and loses. Life just isn't fair. At least this time around, Jack is a fugitive of American law, and Tony's just kind of chilling out being a mercenary who gets the job done when CTU can't. It's a sweet deal. For once, Tony has won over Jack. Seriously. Tony was always put behind or below Jack. You could really feel bad for the guy. Ben Grimes was an annoying character. He really made every wrong decision you could make in his circumstances. He acted really ridiculous. I get that he felt like he was taken advantage of by the government, but come on, dude. Selling sensitive information to terrorists and you're a former ranger? You think they're not going to find you? Seriously. And the story with the kid in the high school who got killed when he got too close to uncovering the terrorist plot? Sad. Very sad. They never even found out. But the girl died, so it's fine. Jadala's whole scheme was good, and it was interesting to see such a young guy take the reins and be the big bad. But then his dad shows up and takes over. And this is his dad, whom he was taking revenge for, who had apparently died a year prior. All of this under 12 hours. See the problem with having a show like this and then making it 12 episodes? Anyway, the acting was good, the story was good, but the ending was rushed. Rebecca's death wasn't as impactful as it should have been, since we had just half a season to get to know her. It's all good anyway. The show gets a pass from us. Critics liked it too, but they found no unique identity to it. And the way the show went, I realized 24 Live Another Day kind of followed suit. It had 12 episodes too. It's like poetry. It rhymes. But then again, apparently in that show it was always going to be just 12. It was all part of the grand design. More on that next week when I upload the video on 24 Live Another Day. Anyway, that was it for our 24 Legacy Talk. Check out our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and the rest of our channel for more Hecate Media content. You won't be disappointed. Have a good day.